Welcome to the Cherland podcast, where I get to meet up with a musician, ask them questions about their life and the music they make. On today's podcast, we got David Fure from the band called Middle Names. He has a middle name, but I will not tell you this middle name. We're going to talk about what it takes to earn your mother's approval, how religion intersects with music, intersects with politics, and just general things about the album he put out called The Present Perfect, which is an album I really, really liked. You'll also hear a song from that album called Bloodlines at about the 42-minute mark, so please enjoy.
When's the last time we talked? The last time we talked was it like at Tessa's wedding or like in Isla Vista at Kage? Like wow. Before you came out with The Present Perfect. Like, I was about to release an album and I was like, dude, this is like the most metaphorical album I've put out. And you're like, really? This is the most straightforward album I've ever put out.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That was a really long time ago. And now you have Honor the Maggot stickers, which I really did.
That's right.
Now that I've heard the album like a ton, and I don't think I ever told you this, but it was like one of my favorite albums of 2019.
Thank
like,
you.
I listened to it a ton casually.
Huh.
And
I'm honored.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think you're super clever.
Mm.
I think like it's super evident in what you write that you're a thinker. You write really dense thoughts as like a punchline.
Uh-huh.
So you kind of have to like sit and chew on it for a while, and you're like, what does that even mean? And then you're like, oh, it's a lot. He's saying a lot in a short space. Well, first I want to hear what your overall thoughts of that release was. Like, do you feel satisfied with that album? You were working with Dan Boss.
That's right.
I think the production, like, you have so many instruments in these mixes, and I think that they all work really nicely together. Like, I feel like it feels like everything has its own space and nothing's crowding something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are your overall feelings about how it went?
It's funny, Honor the Maggot, my mom and I had a conversation about when it first came out. She was like, what are you talking about? What? And she asked me over email. She sent me an email about it, and that's how we communicate about things like that.
Yeah.
And so I wrote her just like a short paragraph response to explain just the line Honor the Maggot, what that means. And she was like, wow, you're a genius. But it just was so funny. Yeah, funny for you to bring up the like density of a punchline and to have had that encounter with my mom.
Does she like actually like learn to appreciate those things after you explain them, or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that I love about my mom. I posted on Facebook this music video for a Run the Jewels song that has a bunch of like inappropriate references and cuss words and stuff. And she emailed me about that and was like, and she sent me the lyrics and highlighted sections of it that she thought weren't appropriate. And she was like, "Is this your legacy? Like, what are you trying to communicate about who you are? How are you trying to influence people?"
Wow.
I know.
That's super thoughtful.
Yeah.
And it's also really intense.
Uh-huh. And I responded, like, in a kind way, but it was nice that she could be intense, and then I was kind of intense and was, like, defending my love for this song, despite its inappropriateness.
Sure. I always come across the problem with, like, parents or just people like from a different generation, but parents especially, because they like see you a very specific way. They like want to see you as very clean.
Yeah.
And but you're not clean. Like, you're a person. So you're mixed.
Yeah.
And there is something, I feel like there's something right about liking things that like have a bit of like dirt to it. And like part of all rap, like, people are like, oh man, they're like they're like lionizing this devilish behavior of like getting with women and like doing these things, and it's like, well, think about it. A lot of these people like didn't have much, so that was like them saying like, this is the coolest thing, or like, this is the most powerful thing I could do. And I'm like, and they wrote it in a song, and like, you should be able to express your deepest desires in a song.
Sure.
So I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, but how else do you feel about back to Honor the Maggot? How do you feel?
Yeah.
That's how your mom feels about it, which is she came around to it.
Yeah. There are aspects of it that I like. There are songs on it that I like. I went into it, I wanted it to sound like the album Michigan by Sufjan Stevens.
Oh, wow.
So I went in wanting it to be really sort of folksy and plain, with a lot of instruments involved. It lacks a certain polish. I kind of wish it had like a
really
more polish.
What do you mean?
I think it sounds like a bunch of instruments in a room.
As opposed to?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Different instruments in different rooms, and you're in a hallway.
Yeah, well, I think lately I've been enamored with like some high production music, and so there's something about, but at the same time I think the problem is honestly that it's just my own music, because there's a lot of music I love that the production value is so low, like some people think it's unlistenable because it's so lo-fi,
right.
But I really love it and enjoy the songwriting, so I think there's something about I have a hard time listening to something that I created and enjoying it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's everybody.
Yeah.
But what are some examples of like more high? I'm gonna say quality, but that's not what I mean. Like more high quality, music that you would want to emulate in the future.
Lucy Dacus is a big one.
Okay.
I've been listening to a lot of women, so I'm gonna say it wrong, but I think Licky Lee is.
Yeah, Lykke.
Uh-huh. She's got this album that's like so pop that I've been listening to and really enjoying. I have this playlist. So Donnie and I are gonna record another album in September, the end of September. It's already September, first week
Dang.
of October / last week of September. And I'm trying to think of what's on that playlist of inspirations.
Yeah.
I mean, Radiohead. I would love to put something out with like the production quality of Radiohead. I'm even comfortable just putting that as the all-encompassing example of polish that I dream of.
Okay, that's so interesting, because I felt like it was really polished, like because there are so many instruments and they all have their space.
Yeah.
Like I always feel like if you're using the space well, and there's not, and like obviously there's like reducing overall noise, like that's like one of the most obvious things.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I feel like I'm like in an experience, and or like when a song has like a voice that's like super close up, that there's not like a whole bunch of other things like bombarding my attention. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you said Michigan, that made a lot of sense. You have like a lot of like the female harmonies are very Michigan. But also I didn't know that you liked Jans Lekman, and there's also like that vibe in like in Honor the Maggot. I feel that too.
I didn't discover him until after The Present Perfect.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I discovered him like a couple months ago and was like immediately obsessed.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's so interesting.
Yes, his in particular his song, the wedding song?
Wedding in Finisterre.
Yes.
Yeah, it's incredible. That chorus is so fun.
So good.
It's the danciest chorus.
Seriously.
I don't know, like what time signatures are, but
okay.
I feel like it has a cool time signature. I don't really know how things work.
Yeah,
but
that's all right.
Yeah, I really like what he does in there.
I agree.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. I thank you. I'm glad that you think it sounds polished. I do love when people, I really appreciate when people like the album or even like aspects of it. So that's helpful to hear, and even that you felt like it was polished. I'll be honest, when I think of like good polished music, Milkshake by Kellis is like top 5 for me.
Okay.
Which is funny because I actually think the synth sounds of that song are crappy.
Okay.
But the production in terms of like, you've got low synth and bass sounds, and then you have sort of minimal percussion, and then high register vocals.
Mm-hmm.
And everything has its space.
Yeah.
And like that song, I think is, I don't know if my heart will rest until I've created a song that is like that song.
Sure.
And I say
like
that, but the album that we're working on next doesn't have yet a song on it like that. So
it's just one smashed pancake of sound. What is your favorite song from your Present Perfect album?
Either Bloodlines or Love is a Fire, probably. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
That's so actually hard for me. I'll say this: Love is a Fire is the only song that I think is a good song. Like,
really,
if someone were to, that's the only song I really want anyone to listen to.
Wow, oh, that's so interesting.
But Nazarite B is like,
as in blues.
As in blues is like my heart's favorite, the one that I actually enjoy myself.
Yeah. So this is a thing that I'd like to dive in on more, because I feel like one of your, like, you're saying I want people to listen to Love is a Fire, and I think you're saying that because it's like it fits pop format, so you think it's the song that they will like.
It doesn't totally fit pop format because it's got this weird sort of like, there's no bridge, and the intro is like not really a first verse, and then the 2 verses, one has words and one doesn't. So it's
Okay.
But the chorus is super pop, and I feel like the vibe, the fact that the word love is in it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, love. All right, I've heard a song about love before. This isn't a song about worms.
Yeah. No, I think that first verse is insane. I like that. That was it was one of those things where like I'd just be sitting on my couch with my wife, and I'd be like, you know what? The song just starts off by saying, picture yourself on a tennis court, holding the racket like you're shaking someone's hand, putting topspin and following through. As a metaphor, that doesn't rhyme, just so you know, Lane. It doesn't rhyme. And I'm like, I want to just be able to put something that's just a great metaphor anywhere I want, and for it to sound like that, because it's so good. Like, that's such a good metaphor, and it reminded me very much of like David Foster Wallace, like, because his writings have a ton of tennis references inside of it. It's clever, but also I think Bloodlines like has some of my favorite like rhymes of yours, where it says, I have a bloodline and sometimes it seems that my bloodline is a bloodbath. I think that's one of my favorite types of ways to rhyme. Yeah, so I find the album very clever.
Thank you.
And smart. Why'd you pick the Present Perfect as a name?
Yeah, I hope I can remember right now. It's a grammatical reference.
Right.
Because the present perfect tense is the one where you say, I have been learning Spanish for 10 years. Yeah. It's something that happened in the past and is continuing now. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So the idea of the song or album was, the album cover is me and my grandpa. I have the picture right here, actually.
So cute.
And the idea is like things that have happened to me in the past that continue to affect me today, that are like ongoing. And the way we are all this walking story. so just sort of, and I mean, like, Bloodlines is sort of this, it's supposed to be a comment on white privilege, but in a way that can be maybe more accessible, because I think that's a loaded term for a lot of people.
Right.
But the idea was to just get us thinking to, like, how did I get here?
Right.
And that's what it's about.
Yeah. And about how you don't feel like a predator, but you
Most days.
That's cool. There's like this. There's like a lot of. Well, there's just a lot of themes in the album, and obviously, I want to talk about things that you're doing currently.
This is great. This is fun.
We never got to talk about this, so I just I want to.
I'm honored. I'm like, what, man, you know some of the lyrics, like, wow.
Oh, I'm not lying when I'm saying, like, it was one of my favorites. One of the themes that I feel like this, like, humility versus honor thing, like you're trying to there's like that kind of thing with Honor the Maggot, and then there's this like this freedom, like this theme of freedom continues to come up like over and over again, of like when it's like a all of my free will is just a wicked false dichotomy, which is a strong phrase to use. So there's a little bit of like fatalism, like play the part that you have, even if it's being a little maggot, you little maggot.
Yeah.
But I'll write a song about you, so that, like, feel good. So like, how were you thinking of those themes? And like, I mean, one way that someone could take it is like, I'm kind of like one of your songs, Ashtray. It talks about like it's the dumpster I grew up in, or it's the junkyard I grew up in. It's the junkyard I'll end up in. Yeah. People who are like from white trash areas being like, you know what? Maybe this is my role. Like maybe my role is to be the trash. What do you feel like you're working through in that concept? Because I don't think that's what you're saying.
Well, to an extent. So that song, I really love the way that you just picked out that phrase, white trash, because that song was inspired by a friend of mine. He doesn't know this. I've never told him this, but it's this friend. He's got two sisters. It's like I used his family as a metaphor or a lens to see the world through. And he and I used to be in a band together. We had band practice at his house. And his parents were splitting up while we were having band practice at their house. And his dad will hopefully not see any of this, I don't know. But like his dad wasn't working, and there was a day when this friend was like, man, do you look at our house and just think like, oh man, white trash? Is that what our house looks like to you? And I was surprised by the question. The answer was no. But it just like really made me think about the way we see ourselves in the world and relationships, and so it's funny to me that you use that word just now, that phrase white trash, because that is exactly what I was thinking of with Junkyard.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a link specifically with the two songs you just referenced, Ashtray and what even is the other one called?
Make Up My Mind?
That's exactly it, yep. Funny. You're right, there is a link between those two songs. I'm struggling to remember what it is because I wrote them like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's a sort of wrestling with self-deprecation and nihilism, while also recognizing the like beauty of the world and the beauty of humility and the beauty of this being small, being mortal, being just like a puff of smoke that's gonna disappear.
Yeah.
And being in a lot of ways a cog in a machine. I feel like I've really wrestled with personally, like, to what extent am I okay with the fact that I am just a cog in a machine being tumbled around, like, does free will exist? Is this just the result of the synapses in my brain firing? Like, how does this all work? And did I even say that correctly? I'm not a neurosurgeon. I don't understand brains. I don't know if that answers what you're getting at, but
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things, and I feel like this is one of your strengths as a writer, is being able to put yourself in a mind frame and then write a song from that mind frame. And your songs within themselves and within one another can contradict. And I think that that's a really important thing to be able to do, because it's not your job to have clear theses on how the world should run. I think it's your job to express emotion and be able to move people through your observations. And I think that is accomplished, and like, yeah, which is why I respect you as a writer so much, is because that it's so easy to go into this like really pithy space of like, oh, this means this and this is what these are about, versus just like telling a story or like conveying a feeling and being able to let that rest and be like, you know what, it's it's about nihilism, and I don't believe in nihilism, but sometimes.
Yeah. We are complex and contradictory. That's what it's like to be a person.
Right. Like, based on the album that you put out most recently, those 3 songs, the Rain Walker, Easter Morning, and Natural Light.
Yeah.
They're kind of sad. And just like thinking like about some of these concepts are like really heavy, but if someone was to meet you, they would experience you as like incredibly light and fun. And I think that that's also just one of those like really interesting contradictions that we find in artists a lot, of like, oh, you're actually like some people who write really fun songs are like actually quite a bummer. And it's just like, this is our way of working out these like negative things that we think about often. Yeah, it's just interesting. So those are my thoughts about the Present Perfect. I like it a lot. I think you're swell.
So you mentioned like the contradictory within a song and songs next to each other, and I will say there's a song called Basement Scene by Deer Hunter, and there's this line in it that's like, I don't wanna get old, I wanna get old, and it like rocked my world. I don't know, I was a junior in high school, and I just was like, you don't want to get old, you want to get old. Both.
Is that his chorus?
It's the chorus is like different every time.
Nice.
But yes, it's like, and it's not always contradictory. Sometimes it's just don't the whole time. It's
yeah.
But that I just remember being like, that's such good songwriting. It's so true.
Yeah, that's how I first experienced My Chemical Romance. I'm Not Okay. I'm curious about like one of the things that I'm struggling through right now and just like wrestling with is this concept of like the way that my art interacts with my life as a United States citizen, interacts with my role in the Christian church. And I think that the balance of those 3 things feel like they're pulling me in 3 so different directions, and it's really confusing. And I think like you weren't born in Isla Vista, but you were a part of Isla Vista worship, and so like that was a space where your music and your religion relationship with God was like interacting. And now, just based off what you're posting on Instagram, like it seems like a lot of the not that it takes away from like the Christianity or anything, but it's like the like activist part of you is connecting with the musical part of you. So like how do you find balance between those things. It's tough. There's no right answer. I have no expectation for you to answer it well. So just let me know what you think.
I love that. That's funny. You reminding me. I was working on a song that it doesn't look like we're gonna do this for real, but I was working on a song where the chorus was about setting the president on fire.
Right. Yeah. You posted that as an Instagram story.
We decided that I mean, it would, if I were to ever run for local office, it would hurt my chances if it was known that I had made a song encouraging violence towards an elected official. So
Right.
we decided not to run with that.
And can you imagine the email from your mother? David, is this your legacy?
Yes, let it be my legacy. No, I'm committed to nonviolence. Where that song came from. So here's where things actually took a massive turn for me. So I was a sociology major in college. So I have been wrestling with the and I bring that up mostly to say that like the conversation on race is not new for me. My family, we see things differently. My parents watched a lot of Fox News while we were growing up. My dad and I also listened to NPR in the car together a lot. So like, and my dad's from Norway, so the socialist democracy state that's cops don't have guns in Norway. So a variety of influences in the family, and my brother and I are like really progressive, uniquely from the rest of the family. We've been talking about race in the family for years. My dad's a doctor, so he's retired now, but has seen the like disparities in treatment towards different races. He was an OBGYN, and I think it's black women are like, I'm not going to throw out a statistic, I don't want to be wrong, but they're just more likely to die in childbirth. But here's where everything changed for me recently in terms of how I engage with it in the public forum or on social media. The day that Donald Trump gassed protesters in Lafayette Square so that he could go over to a church and hold up a Bible, I was like, that changed everything for me.
That's an amazing metaphor. Like, symbolically, that says so much. Like, it's such a deep... It's not an aberration. It's like a deep symbol of where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah. Continue, sorry.
No, yeah, and his claim was like, he tweeted this thing about, you don't burn churches in America, which is funny because people have been burning churches for decades. I think, again, I don't want to say some wrong statistics, but from what I've seen, it looks like more often black churches get burned by domestic terrorists like the KKK. So this thing about like he's defending churches is like, I don't think that's the real message here. And he's saying like, oh, these weren't peaceful protesters. Last night they were burning this church. It's like, last night somebody had lit that church on fire, but is that person in the crowd today? Like, do you think we're stupid? Probably. But this idea that, and then Franklin Graham, prominent evangelical son of Billy Graham, like defends Trump for doing that. And I just was like, holy shit, I gotta say something. I work, my day job is ministry with teenagers. So I just was like, this is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're saying like you need to speak up, like how do you work through those feelings of like, will church people be like weirded out by me, or like do you have those feelings, or?
I feel like, so are you asking specifically about art? Because why I'm asking that is I don't feel like I've addressed these things in really an artistic form yet.
Okay.
I posted that Instagram story of me singing about lighting the president on fire, but
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't see that.
Oh, sure. Well, I also just figured you were going to continue to work on that song, and so I assumed that you were like continuing in that same form.
I've thought about it, but I would like to. I really do think this is like a really ripe moment for a song with some social commentary.
Right.
And also such a terrifying moment for commentary like that, because I hate the term cancel culture. I don't even really want to say those words together.
Yeah. It means a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of dangerous to
Yes.
like know what anybody means by it.
Right. And I feel like, people on the right say that only people on the left do it, but it's not true. And we've been doing cancel culture since the 50s, when McCarthy was saying that you're a communist, so you got to go to jail. Like,
Right.
silencing people isn't new. So I'm not really afraid of being silenced, but I'm connected to a lot of people who I disagree with, and I want to keep the conversation open, and I want to be able to engage with them. So I don't really want to shut people out.
Yeah. Yeah, it in general, it's a place of extreme like discomfort and confusion for me. So like even talking about it now like makes me like obviously I feel incredibly like underqualified to talk about anything in the world other than songwriting.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're like one of two of my friends who like actually like has the guts to like post anything within that realm. We'll go ahead and zoom back out into spaces that I know more about.
Sounds good.
Because I don't know, one of the hard things about like going into places like starting conversations that you feel underqualified to talk about. You feel scared asking questions in general. Because you're not sure how ignorant your questions are.
Yeah.
So, and my questions are generally quite ignorant.
That's the best kind of question. I think a lot of people are scared of admitting that they don't know things, so they're not willing to ask when it's good to ask. Like, I want to be the kind of person who's willing, and I'm not saying you need to ask me some stupid questions, but I'm
sure.
The people I know who, like, if you say a big word and they don't understand it, the people I know who are willing to say, what does that word mean?
Right.
Are the people that I respect a lot. But it comes with the danger of being perceived as ignorant or less intelligent.
Yeah. I want to just totally we're gonna take a right turn into one of the other themes that comes up in your music, which is the type of person you want to grow up to be, and that involving not being boring, not being suburban just for the sake of being suburban and feeling safe, trying to like push yourself away from this feeling of safety in order to avoid like becoming someone you don't want to be. So I mean, but you wrote those songs like 3 years ago, so like how have those feelings evolved? What are your overall feelings about the suburbs? What do you hope your future, like instead of like David Fure at 35 years old, married with 2.5 kids and a golden retriever, what does David Fure at 35 hopefully look like for you?
Yeah.
In a treehouse with a Jane from Tarzan.
Yes. I would love to have kids. I do want to have kids.
Okay.
So no, nothing wrong with having kids. And dogs are fine too. I don't love dogs, but I can have a dog. Thank you for asking that. What I love about songwriting is that when you write about personal things like that, they haunt you. Like the song I wrote for Isla Vista Worship that's about I don't live for myself. People tell me they love that song, and then I'm reminded like, oh yeah, I wrote a song about how I don't live for myself. Like, fuck. I guess I don't. I have to not live for myself or something like. Ugh.
Yeah. Or something.
Yeah. I just love. There's something about recording your convictions that ends up haunting you.
But
So-
that's super important. Like,
Yeah.
when you think about yourself as, like, a 5-year-old kid, like, there were things that you believed, and you believed them because they were right. They may have been naive,
Mhm.
but you knew that lying was wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you knew that, like, betraying a friend was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then you grow up, and you're like, oh, but there are all these corner cases, and then you become such a, like, crap person that now you just don't believe anything.
Yeah.
And you're just living your life, like, just trying to get by.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, tell me more about.
Yeah,
your thoughts.
I'm still wrestling with that because I would say that's tied to another theme in my music that is more or less apparent, which is money, and I like recognize that there's parts of me that really want to be. Can you hear the people talking in the background?
A little bit, but
Okay.
like not a ton.
I recognize like my propensity for greed,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm constantly doing this battle within myself of like reminding myself that it's okay to enjoy what I enjoy and choose what I choose and want what I want, and I don't have to fit into some box. I don't have to grow up to be wealthy and own a house and whatever. So I've really enjoyed traveling. So my dad's from Norway. I'm a Norwegian citizen, so I've enjoyed going to Norway a lot. I really love. There was a season in my life where it felt like I spent a lot of time in Mexico. I just really enjoy.
Yeah.
Mexico. I wish I was better at Spanish. It is my intention in the next 5 to 10 years to spend some significant chunk of time living in somewhere like Peru or something to learn Spanish. I'm really attracted to people like Saint Francis. Like Saint Francis was born into a wealthy family, and one day stripped off all his clothes, got naked, and was like, I don't want to be rich anymore. I want to live among the poor. And
Yeah.
That's what I see in the life of Jesus, like this proximity to the least of these, the marginalized, the people who are like pushed out, who are seen as on the fringe. Jesus had poor friends. Like he
Right.
hung out with poor people. How many friends do I have who are poor? And like, what does it look like? In America, we have millionaire megachurch pastors. This has
Right.
never happened before in history. Like
Right.
in the 1700s, that didn't exist. Now all of a sudden we
Right.
live in an age where you can be a millionaire megachurch pastor. That's a new
Right.
phenomenon.
That's a thing you could be.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to sit in like judgment on anybody who is that, but I also want to take anything they say with a very large grain of salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is like a modern day person that you like? Do you have someone in your life, like an older anybody, who you look at them and you're like, I like the way that you live. I like the amount of money that you make. I like the amount of money that you give.
Mhm.
And it seems like do you have someone who you feel like is straddling the line between self-preservation and like charitable giving or like self-sacrificial giving?
Yeah. My boss actually, he was my friend before we worked together.
Cool.
Peter is his name, and he's super generous. His wife is a teacher. They have 2 kids, and their lifestyle is like super sustainable environmentally. Like they use tons of reusable stuff, and they're just really thoughtful in the way they live in the world, and like it in a really incredible countercultural way. And yet like I don't know, he's so organized and responsible and like all these things that I wish I was, and so that's somebody who comes to mind. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, especially like as an artist, because there are solid principles that you can learn from people who are strong businessmen. Like Scrooge was like a great businessman,
Absolutely.
but he didn't believe in the spirit of Christmas, so
Right.
So like as I'm becoming an adult, like one of the things I learned this year was like, again, this is talking about like me being a kid versus like me being adult, was like you should show all your income to the IRS, and you should pay the taxes that they show you. And this was the first year that I ever experienced the like real weight of believing something like that, which was like, oh, people who make more than me pay less than me. Like, by me doing all of these like good things, I'm going to lose more money. How much do I believe it now? And that's like the real, like, where the rubber meets the road kind of a thing of like, I feel like we can go into it like a ton of these. It's probably just because of like where we are in terms of like timelines, like we're in our 20s, and like this is where people are like, our values are getting cemented into us.
Yeah.
And it's this thing of like, all your ideals will be tested, like to their threshold, and then from there you'll like that's how you're gonna act probably for most of your life, you know. And like, yeah, if there's ever a time to talk about like trying to avoid what at least what the suburbs represent, which is like, because it's not like, if you end up in the suburbs, that's not the worst thing.
No.
It's like, I have no judgment for anybody that's in the suburbs right now in Santa Barbara and Goleta. Like, it's some of the only affordable housing, but it's the idea of like, yeah, like betraying your childhood self of like, when you were a kid, you did want to be like this musician who like inspired people to like live different and like open their eyes to something new.
Yeah.
And then you like grew up and realized your eyes were closed to all of it. So it's one of the things that I'm frequently like going through as well. Anyway, I said that I wanted to hear you play a song. Is this possible for me to hear you play a song?
Yeah, I can do that.
Did you have songs that you wanted to play in mind, or
Did you want to pick one?
I mean, you already mentioned Bloodlines as one of your favorites.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's the one I had in mind.
Oh, hell yeah.
Mostly because it's like, I think potentially the most interesting for me to play alone.
Yeah, and it's still quite relevant.
Yeah. You can't really see the guitar. Should I stand? Should I move back? How am I going to do this?
No, you don't got to do anything, man. You can do whatever makes you feel good.
Stand all the way back here.
Yeah.
I should have been doing this the whole time. So you can see my legs.
Perfect.
I'll say I'm wearing Métier Brewing Co., only black-owned brewery in Washington.
Really?
Yeah.
The only.
One out of, there's literally, this is funny, 420, LOL,
Yeah.
420
LOL.
breweries in Washington, but that's the only one that's black-owned. And the beer's delicious.
Well, great.
Highly recommend.
Next time I travel anywhere, I'll see if I can make it up to Washington.
You should. Yeah, you absolutely should. All right, this is Bloodlines. How did I get to the top of the food chain? Was it guns, bombs, or learning how to use first and last names? I don't feel like if I'm dancing on. I am a product, I am a grandchild, I am in context, I have a bloodline, and sometimes it seems that my bloodline is a bloodbath. There's no such thing as a self-made man. Everything I have I took from someone else's hand, and I don't hold myself responsible for what anyone else has done, but I think it's impossible to divorce myself from where I've come. I am a product, I am a grandchild, I am in context, I have a bloodline, and sometimes it seems that my bloodline is a bloodbath. I'm a product, I am a grandchild, I am in context, I have a bloodline, and sometimes it seems that my bloodline is a bloodbath.
So good, man.
Thank you.
It's such an honor to get to have a one-on-one concert with you. It's I feel like one of the things that musicians are missing out on just in general right now is the ability to connect to people live through their music.
Big time.
And that's like why we get in the game in the first place.
Yeah.
Is being able to watch people be moved and to like hear them say like, hey, that moved me. Like it mattered to me that you did that, you know?
Yeah.
And it does. So thank you for playing that. That's
Absolutely.
really special. Dude, you should re-record that as just a you and a guitar, because that sounded so nice. Like on the album, it's like quite groovy at certain points.
Yeah.
And that like it just makes it so much more weighty, but also like it had like a real beauty to it, so I really liked it.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, maybe I should. You're making me want to do like some kind of to maybe finish that song about the president that I was going to collaborate with my friend Greg, he's a local rapper, Greg Cypher. You should listen to his music. It's really good.
Great.
You're making me think that it could be sweet to do like a relevant album, because I do want to be the kind of musician who can speak to the moment.
Well, yeah, that would fit in there quite well. It'd be funny if it was like everything was acoustic, including a collaboration rap song with Greg Cypher. Is that his last name?
Yeah.
Is that his real last name?
No.
Okay. I was like, because if Cypher is your last name, then you're kind of like, that's just what you have to do. You have to rap.
That's what you gotta do. No, it's his rap name.
Okay. Cool. If your last name is Scyther, then you have to.
Then you have to be a Pokemon.
Then you have to be a Pokemon. Sorry.
I gotta tell you, your song, is it called the one that's like, if you want it,
yeah,
you can have it. If you want it, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was called, but I'm always nervous I'm gonna get a song names wrong. That song is stuck in my head all the time. I'm like,
really?
I just drive around singing, if you want it, you can have it. When you got it, do you want it at all?
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I have a question for you, though. But you say what you're about to say, because you might answer it.
Oh, I was saying I wrote that because I was playing at this bar in Solvang, and like before COVID, I was doing so many gigs of just background music and just nobody cares, and it just brutal. And this one was particular. This was before I had like decent rates, so I wasn't even getting paid well. And it was a 3-hour gig, and I had just put my stuff away, and like literally just put the last thing on the cart and was carting it away. And this guy was like, "Hey man, oh man, I'm so sorry. Like I missed your set. Could you play again?" And it was like this, like, and he didn't mean anything by it. He like the probably what he meant was, "Oh, I wish I could experience live music. Any chance you could provide that?" With like no harm. But I was like so fed up. I was like, in my mind, I was like, okay, this, what I initially wanted was to make music for a living and make a living wage off of music. And I accomplished that. And I'm not happy. So, what do I really want? And it's to, like, when I give my attention to something, it matters. Like, I have a presence that's helpful and caring and contributive, if that's a word, to most spaces. And so when I'm doing that for hours and not being noticed whatsoever, it's a total, like, it feels like a total waste. And I was like, this is what I want to do from now on, is I want to give my attention to those who are like willing to listen and like receive my attention. And I want us to like give each other the attention that we deserve. Because this, what I'm doing currently, can be replaced by a Spotify playlist any day of the week. And I mean, it totally had its place, which was, it made me better at, like, it toughened my skin to the point where I could play for 3 hours, get 0 claps, and move on. Like, get my paycheck and move on. And that's a really important skill, because there are days where people just aren't connecting with what I'm doing. And that's fine. But when you have 5 gigs in a week and no one claps for you in a week, and you've had like 15 hours of music in public, like that's when you know things are going wrong, and you're like, all right, time to switch it up. So that was when I wrote that song.
Okay, here's my question, and maybe you're answering it. But so, if you want it, you can have it. When you got it, do you want it all? So is this you saying, if you want to make a living wage doing music, you can do that, and now you're doing it, and is this even what you really wanted? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's that chorus is basically my thesis for all things. Like anything in the world that you want, like the most like Playboy lifestyle, the most like, and any like your wildest dreams, you can probably get it. But what does it take to get there? And do you actually want that life? And what I want to do is connect with people, and like for a living, I want to connect and move. And that's very different from saying like I just want to make $50,000 a year. I mean, I've been a full-time musician now for 4 years, and it feels so cool in this last year to have that clarity and be like, oh, I'm starting to understand what being an artist is about, which is funny to learn 3 years in. Within that first year, I was like, man, art is crap. It does nothing. I don't know why people pay me for it, but while they do, I'm going to go for it. And as I continued to progress in it, I was like, man, art is like, it's like the thing. Like, it's when people neglect their responsibility to their own creative self, they become these monsters. And I want to show them that there's another way. And I'm like, and I can do that. That's within my wheelhouse. I have a lot of feelings about that song just because it's so like a thesis the essential.
Did you say essential?
Yeah, it's when a thesis is essential. So
I like it. I appreciate that thinking, and I would love to talk more too. I do want to like know more about that experience of being a full-time musician, because I've wondered like what would it look like to make that jump. Is that something I want to do? How would I feel about? I mean, it seems like another additional plus to the like playing for 30 hours with no claps is just getting your chops up, like becoming a better player, better singer.
The chops which is why probably no one should have taken me seriously when I first started, because my chops were so low, they were not up.
Mm-hmm.
And but playing in burger joints and bars and just all those types of things, they got me better at strumming. And there's a balance. I was playing so much that it physically hurt me to start practicing during the weeks, and that was a bad trade-off. Where that's not how you should take it. We are a bit over an hour.
Yeah.
I wanted to first off, just thanks for meeting up, because this has been really fun. I like talking to you a lot. I think you're like
Ditto.
a cream of the crop artist, like a
thanks.
purebred artist. So I really enjoy learning from you and just getting the chance to like study your music and ask you questions about it.
Thanks.
And then I also wanted to bring up the line from Listen, which this might be my favorite line from the album, which was, is it God trying to talk to me or just my heart fighting to be heard? Do you have anything like that in your life coming up?
So I'll say that I think the answer to that question in the song, is it God trying to talk to me or just my heart fighting to be heard? The answer is either way, you need to listen and you should do it.
Yeah.
So I would say that where I'm at now is that I worry much less about like, is this God's will or is this my will? And maybe that sounds hedonistic, but I have found that the temptation to silence your own heart for the sake of what you think God is telling you to do, I don't think God is ever telling you to silence your heart. And maybe I'm using really flowery language, because like, maybe,
I like it.
Maybe Hitler was listening to his heart. Like that doesn't make it good or okay.
Yeah.
But I think the mistrust of yourself that can come from thinking there's this big difference between your heart and God's will, and I have the propensity for evil. Like, we all have this incredible propensity for evil. Like, there's people that I point at and say, they are doing it wrong. Those people are racist. But at the same time, I need to say, I have done it wrong, and I will probably do it wrong again next week. And yeah, I could talk about this forever and maybe not even say stuff that's coherent, but I think it's really important to listen to your heart.
Yeah. That's great. I think I mean, I've been reading all these books about decision making, and I recently went through Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning.
Wow.
And he talks about a very similar thing where it's like a lot of people think that there's like this one thing they're supposed to be doing or this one person they should be marrying.
Yeah.
And there's like options.
Yes.
And they're like, where you think there's one option, like the book I'm reading right now, it's called Decisive, and he says when you are a teenager, you think, should I go to the party or not go to the party? And you think that one of those is right. And he's like, and when you're older, you realize you could watch TV and then stop by the party and then go bowling. And he's like, there's everything else in the world, and you could have a really awesome time. And it morally be the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I totally agree with that. I like it. I like you. This is a great time to end it, because there's this dog like bark. Can you hear this dog?
Yes, I can.
It's
a loud dog.
aggressive.